Hello guys, how are you? It's time for the first demo in this course. I'm gonna show you how you can impersonate a user via insecure login. In other words, I'm gonna show you how you can find out whether this kind of attack is possible in your web application. As you can see, right now I am logged out. So let me first check my non-authenticated session ID. For this purpose, I will use Cookies Manager because Cookies Manager allows me easily to play with the cookies in the web application. Here is my session ID. The name of the cookie with session ID is PHP SesID. My web application is hosted on the domain example.com. And here is the value of my session ID. And to be more precise, this is the value of non-authenticated session ID because right now I am logged out. Okay, let me copy the value of this non-authenticated session ID. So I'll copy it. I'll close Cookies Manager. And I will paste this value here in the document. And I will put some comment like this is non-authenticated session ID. Okay, so far so good. What I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to provide in the very same document also the value of authenticated session ID, and I'm going to compare them, right? So now let me go back to my web application and let me log in. So I will provide my email and my password. And I will click Login. As you can see in the upper right corner, there is my name, David, and well, it suggests that I am indeed authenticated right now. I will click it so that you can see my profile now. No doubts, I am really authenticated. Okay, so I have been authenticated. So in terms of session management, in terms of session ID, right now we are talking about authenticated session ID, right? So let me go again to Cookies Manager and let me copy the value of my session ID. Right now I am authenticated, so we are talking about authenticated session ID. I'm gonna copy this value and I'm gonna paste this value to my file. And I will put a comment that this is authenticated session ID. Now let's make a short comparison. As you can see, the values of non-authenticated session ID and authenticated session ID are the same. In other words, the session ID has not been regenerated at the time of authentication, which is really great from the attacker's point of view. Because as I explained to you in the previous video, the attacker can learn the non-authenticated session ID of the user when the user is logged out. At that time, it is useless piece of information for the attacker. But then the user comes in, the user provides email password, the user becomes authenticated. And once the user is authenticated, then the only piece of data that is used by the web application to recognize the user is a session ID. And if this session ID, authenticated session ID, is the same as the non-authenticated session ID at the very beginning, before logging in, then you will end up in problem because then the attacker can get access to your account without knowing your email and password. Can you see that? Can you see how beautiful it is from the attacker's point of view? The attacker does not have to know your login and password in order to get access to your account. And now you see how powerful it is to do security testing of session management. In other words, broken session management can lead to very severe consequences. So now I believe that it is clear. And you see that you can do this kind of testing very quickly. And I believe that you understand all the steps. So I hope it has been informative for you. And let me jump to the next bug on our list.